Do you know somebody who won't wear their seatbelt? Well, if they won't listen to their cars dinging, maybe you should add some of your own.
Ding, 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 ding.
Go ahead,
ding,
kids. Chime
ding,
in.
Ding, ding, ding.
Hey, you on the street, tell this guy to wear a seatbelt.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep, it's okay to speak up, because you know what? You could save their life. Learn more at buckleupva.com. A message from the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles.
You got the Ionic?
Yo, that Ionic 5 hasn't arrived yet. I'm still waiting for it, but I'm excited. I can't wait for that Ionic.
And it's fully electric.
Fully electric. It is the most evolved Hyundai. The Hyundai Ionic 5.
With up to 303-mile range.
Woo! With the rear-wheel drive SE, SEL, and limited models. With available two-way charging, you can charge larger electronic equipment inside and outside the car. The optional ultra-fast charging capability gives you over 60 miles of range with just 6 minutes of charge.
Learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. HyundaiUSA.com.
Hello, I'm Clark Ching, and you're listening to the Agile Uprising podcast.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Agile Uprising podcast. I'm your host, again, Jay Hersko. And joined with me, I think the first time we've been on an actual episode together, Janee McConnell. Janee, thanks for joining.
Of course. Yeah, I think you're right. It's our first time, just you and me.
Oh, it's our first time. We probably shouldn't say that again because someone could cut this and take it out of context. So let's get to the topic of the episode. So Janee and I are doing it unscripted, and we're going to try and do something a little bit fun. So Janee was telling me a story about something that she's trying or has tried at a previous life where she created the idea of an Agile Mixtape. And we're going to talk about that and decompose that a little bit because not only is it novel and unique, she sent me a list of it and I was all in until Taylor Swift showed up. But then I was like, oh, really? Is she going to start whining about an ex-boyfriend? But I was a big fan of Jimothy Lacoste. So let's go back to the beginning. So Janee, where did this come from?
Okay, so it came from, I just had like a weekend where I would like work was on my mind. And ever since I got into Agile, and certainly once I became a Scrum Master and started working with more than one team, I was like, man, I really wish there was a way I could organize all of the ideas and the information that comes my way, you know, like a filing cabinet of sorts. So I decided to like build basically like a portfolio, just like a website for myself where I could put, you know, retros that I've used and different ideas and kind of resources that I go to as a means of like helping myself organize those things, but also to share it out with my community. At that point in time, the company I was with, I shared it with our group of Agilists. And it was just like, hey, this is just kind of a, you know, repository of the things that I go to, things that I like, things that inspire me. And I was looking at it after I kind of like published it or whatever, Google Sites. And I was like, this is boring. I thought of MySpace. Like, I would love to have some music on here. And then I was like,
you're dating yourself, by the way.
I know, and that's fine.
That's where we all learned how to write HTML code or use CSS was MySpace, those seizure-inducing sites of your friends. Yeah.
How creative can I be? Yeah. So how much trouble can I get into? But so I was like, well, I'm not gonna have music playing. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I was like, what if I created a playlist that was about Agile? And so I put it together. And then as I was adding songs, in my mind, I just kind of moved through the events of a sprint and just kind of like the typical ceremonies. And I was like, oh, I'll just pick songs that embody those ceremonies, you know, because I feel like we've all, you know, you'll play Bob Marley, like Get Up, Stand Up when you do get up and that kind of thing. I've certainly seen other people do that. I've done that myself. But then I'm going to pull in songs for all of them, see what I can come up with. And then right about that time, I got approached for the position that I have now at this new company. And I was like, oh, what if I was doing my research on the company. I looked up their values, and I was like, what if I could find a song for each of their values, throw it in there at the top of the playlist, and send that to the recruiter as like, hey, just share this with everybody, see what they think. It's kind of a fun thing. And they were like, whoa.
I did not know that part of the story, and that is absolutely wild. That is really wild.
Yeah. So it's funny because I got the job, spoiler alert. And afterwards, the recruiter sent me a link to the music channel, and she was like, scroll up. And I could see where she had posted it, and everybody was reacting, and they were like, wow, this is really cool. And they may not even have known exactly what it all was supposed to mean, because essentially from top to bottom, I start with stand up and I move through a 2-week sprint with all the songs. So, yeah.
It's amazing. So when you sent it to me, I was like, okay, let me take a look here. And you took the time to add 114 songs to a playlist, which is no small feat in and of itself, right? That's a lot of clicking on Spotify, and it's even more clicking if you're doing it on your phone. By the way, folks, we will put a link to the playlist in the show notes. But if you just looked, like, even on its surface, looking at the titles, Drive, Always Improving, Energize, Tell Me Why, Focus, thinking about the long term. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, that came on when I was shuffling today. I burst out laughing. I Understand, I Can Help, Customer Support, Human Nature, again, another great song. So there's a lot that can be said without saying anything, and not by not saying anything in the sense of saying nothing, but without verbalizing, hey, I'm giving you this because X. There's just by perusing the titles alone.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be gleaned from that.
Yeah. And like I said, I focus mostly on the titles. So I will say not all of these songs are like safe for work. Just throw that out there.
Yeah, I caught that disclaimer. I was like, ooh, what's going to show up here?
I didn't screen for, so, proceed at your own risk. It's just a creative exercise. So I'm going to use that license. And, but yeah, I just focus on titles, and I did when I find, if I typed something in the search and I came up with a list of songs, which for some of them it was easy, right? Like Team, or, even some of the emotions around stand-up or retro, like you could pull in a ton of songs. So I picked ones that I liked and that I thought were good. So it doesn't necessarily have like the typical flow of your usual mixtape as far as the type of music or the genres. It's all over the board. But it's a lot of fun.
What was the reaction? So once you use this, you sent this over to the recruiter, you started the job. Have you had any conversations with people at the job about this? Like, have people tried to submit, hey, what about this song? What about this song? What about that song? Like, what kind of narrative or conversation has it created?
So not much as of yet, because right now it's just me. And I just hired a couple team coaches, so they'll come on. My dream would be to kind of keep working on this and, throw a few songs in there from time to time, share it out to the teams once they're actually kind of in the place where all of these ceremonies are happening regularly at the team level, and say, hey, check out songs, 16 through 24. This is our stand-up section. Does anybody have any ideas for some songs we could add? Because they have such a great, like, people-centered culture. It's a lot of fun there. So I know that they could get into it, because they're really, the music channel in particular is very active. So
that's great. And it's a novel way to build relationships.
Yeah.
Because if somebody comes forward and they only come forward with, say, really like more aggressive type stuff, well, those people, there's usually one or two in every company, right?
Yep.
That listen to my type of music, which is like, the stuff that my mother hated. And they typically find each other, but that helps people make connections. And one of the first things I thought about when you sent this to me was Robin Dunbar from the Dunbar Number. He did an interview. His newest book is called Friendship, I think. And it talks about the differing levels of friendship. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he mentioned in an interview with Jim Rutt was where he said the easiest, the best indicator of two people, will they be friends or not, is a shared interest in musical tastes. So shared musical tastes. And he has, of course, it's Robin Dunbar, so there's a voluminous amount of support behind it, like studies and all that sort of stuff, and there's data down there. But I thought that was really kind of fascinating, because I go to shows all the time, and I have a couple of friends who I literally was the last guy in line, and some guy came up behind me and said, hey, is this the line for the show? And I said, yeah, we started chatting, and now I talk to him and hang out with him all the time. So there's something to be said about the joy of music, but also this is a novel way to bring people together.
Yeah. I mean, so growing up, my dad was a DJ on the radio, not like a scratch DJ, but like
an actual disc jockey.
Yes, a disc jockey. So growing up, there was always music playing in my house. The record player was always on, or what have you. And music is just a big part of my life. And to your point, a big part of how I tend to connect with people. So, I mean, yeah, that's how I used to vet dates and that sort of thing. I'd be like, well, what kind of CDs does he have in his car? Let me check this out. And then I'd be like, well,
now, MySpace and CDs in the car. Geez, Janee, you're not doing yourself any favors here.
It's fine. I'm all right with it. These kids got to know.
but you're right, though. I mean, it is an interesting personality. It's kind of like a heuristic to understand what someone is like. Have you ever met someone who really wasn't into music, and you're kind of just like, whoa, so what do you do for fun?
What's wrong with you? Are you a sociopath? Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know that I feel like all my friends are into music in one way or another. I certainly have friends where I'm like, that's weird. I'm not into what you're into, but that's okay.
Do your thing. Yeah.
Do your thing. There will be some common threads most of the time. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that's really just not into music, but I feel like even if I've had friends, that weren't, then I am always like, look, listen to this song, check this out, listen to this. Like if you're in my car, you're listening to music. If you're at my house, you're listening to music. So I feel like I eventually just win them over.
Music fans, we can be a little bit much. We're like, oh, check this out, check that out, check this out, check that out. And it's kind of like, yo, stop.
Yeah. And now listen to this song. And now listen to this song. Yeah.
So we talked about friendship. We talked about the novelty behind music. So one of the things that we're not talking about, because I guess we got to find a guest to come on and talk about this sort of thing, is the healing power of music and tonality. And there are all those studies that talk about natural resonance. So like it's the old for those of you that aren't listeners that aren't familiar with natural resonance, the idea would be this is why the military and marching bands, whenever they go over bridges, they break cadence and they just walk. If you've ever seen the video of Galloping Gertie, the bridge out in the Pacific Northwest, that was because of the wind vibrating through the trusses caused it to hit its natural resonance and it vibrated. But there are a lot of theories which really haven't been dug into. They're kind of treated like pseudoscience, which is really kind of sad. The different vibrational the different vibrational frequencies of music and how it can actually heal and ease the brain. I mean, I'll tell you that everybody knows I've taken every goddamn safe course there is to take. My secret to passing those stupid exams, I go to YouTube and I put on like 650 hertz, cleanse your soul, like that, and I just put it on in the background.
Yeah.
And there's something there, and I'm not really paying attention to it, but I know it's there. I've passed all my tests on the first try. So maybe correlation, causation. I know, Jay, you've been drinking. I know, but there really might be something there.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I've actually been exploring some of that myself, like the binaural beats or like white noise, not just white noise, but there's like brown noise, blue noise, pink noise. Like, have you seen all those? And you can find these playlists on Spotify, and I'm sure wherever else you would like to find your music. I don't work for Spotify. And it's interesting because actually my daughter recommended, I was like, oh man, when I get stressed out, I just have a hard time meditating. It's not really my jam. And she was like, you should check out these brown noise playlists. And the first thing I think of is South Park. And then the second thing I think of is
the brown note. Yep.
I'll check this out. And it's basically just engineered silence. And so it sounds like that's kind of, what it's the hertz and like the different frequencies that kind of helps just kind of clear your mind somehow.
Like the cool. Tibetan bowls and the kind of like the low resonance vibrations. I because this is the way I am, I actually went down a rabbit hole and looked at why concert pitch is 440 hertz, which is it's the middle C over A. And if you look throughout history, it used to be both lower and higher. So 442, or is it 442? But it used to be 440. I think it's 440 now. It used to be 442. There was an urban legend that the Nazis used to broadcast their speeches, Hitler's speeches, at 442 hertz because it is a naturally resonant frequency. Something about like a Fibonacci number and the whole that. Like they really went down the rabbit hole. And I was like, okay, time out, Jake. It's gonna be like 3 a.m. and I'm gonna come out looking like Charlie and It's Always Sunny. Like my eyes are gonna be big, who is Peppy, whatever. It's gonna be nuts. But there is something to be said about the healing power of music. And we all know that music is naturally transformative because you can hear a song and you can automatically remember. I remember being on the beach with my dad when I was a kid. I remember when I got my first tattoo, POD's Alive was playing in the background. Not the best memory, but it's a memory nonetheless.
Yep.
So there is something to be said about using music as a lever by which the team, almost like I hate to say table stake, but almost the table stake by which the team can gather themselves around, right? Like now you made me think of like an interesting like team building exercise. Whenever I start my meetings, I start with like a kind of goofy question, like describe your mood today as a weather report, or what's the worst ice cream flavor you've ever had, and how does it relate to the worst project you've ever had? Stuff like that. You really, my answers are probably great.
I love it.
I've had some great team ones. So somebody used rum raisin and they went on this rant about QA and stuff. It was kind of, I wish I'd recorded it because this was like Robin Williams-esque. They just kept going and the story kept getting worse the more they kept going. But that's not a bad question. Like, so what's your favorite, desert album questions, or what's your favorite song over the last 6 months and why? These are things that people can learn to relate to each other as coworkers and peers without going into the whole, I'm a scrum master and I've been doing it for this amount of time, or I'm a coach. It's the people to people equation.
And I think that it's at least I hope, I'd say for most people, it tends to be like a low stakes way to reveal some part of yourself that's not totally all about work, right? So if I say, hey, why don't we're going to build a playlist, everybody add a song to this link, and add a song that reminds you of high school, or add a song that you like to listen to when you're cleaning your house, that kind of thing, and then you can give them a few minutes to explain why they chose that song. And it's just fun because you can kind of shake the dust off, and it's not connected to anything. You can be a little bit vulnerable, and it's easy. Right.
You can be vulnerable without being explicitly vulnerable, right? Yeah, like it's the whole, you want people to be open and be communicative, but sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, right? Because you may hit a nerve and really make things go sideways. This is a very low risk, high reward type of experiment, which can bear some fruit.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the things that I like to do, because I am not the kind of scrum master or agile coach that's going to be like, let's everybody check in, tell me how you're feeling. I'm not going to do that because I don't love that. So I want to find other ways to get adjacent to that. Yeah.
And the same answer without asking the question.
Yeah. And then afterwards I'm like, it's working. Look at it.
What's been your least successful icebreaker question? Your least successful, like trying to get the room going and they just, for whatever reason, they didn't get it, or it went, the first person had like, oh, this makes me think of when like my dog died and it just takes the whole room out. Like, have you ever had those where an icebreaker go awry?
I tend to know, but I've had a retro go awry. The first time and last time I did a sailboat retro. Somebody
should have used Mr. Toad, but whatever.
Yeah.
Really?
Somebody cried, and it was like real sobbing tears, and just like, a lot of things came out that needed to come out anyways, but I was like, I was new to all of this, and I was like, is this how it's supposed to go? Are people supposed to be crying? Is it the sailboat's fault? Like, what the hell? I was like, man, fuck the sailboat retro. Sorry to whoever created that. I apologize, but I can't do it anymore. I'm going to find some other. Yeah, I should have done Mr. Toad.
Should have done this. That's right. Aside from JJ, Jeff, none of us come out of the practitioners. None of us.
Right.
Learning for all of us, and sometimes it kind of gets goofy.
Yeah. So I feel like too, I'm always trying to pick, because maybe I can't think of an icebreaker example, because I'm always trying to pick ones that feel good to me. I don't tend to step too far outside of my comfort zone with that stuff, because I don't want to set people up for something that's going to give them a reason to be like, what the hell is this?
Right. The intent is to bring people together.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is introduce something that could actually end up bringing people apart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or creating a wedge, or yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole crying in a retro. I haven't seen that, but I mean, nothing is worse than seeing someone like cry at work. I'm convinced that no one should ever have to cry at work. And as soon as you see someone crying at work, I mean, I remember in a previous life, I came back onto the floor. It was like 5:15 at night. I was coming out of a late meeting. And this is back when we all used to go in an office, and there was one of our QA leads sitting there, and she was crying in her desk. And I went over and I asked her what was going on, and somebody was really, really mean to her in a meeting, like ridiculously so. And I called my boss and I said, look, I'm not calling you because I'm trying to rat somebody out. I'm not calling you because I want to get somebody in trouble. I'm not calling you because I want to make drama. I'm calling you because one of our colleagues is crying in their desk, and that is not right. And you and I need to find a way to fix it. And it wasn't my employee that was crying. It wasn't my employee that made her cry. Right. But the fact remains that nobody should cry at work unless you are an actor or actress and being paid obscene amounts of money to do it on demand. Don't cry at work. And if you are being forced to cry at work. So let me ask you this, Janee, while we're really going down the rabbit hole here.
Okay. When's
the last time you cried at work? Or have you ever cried at work?
Oh my gosh, Jay, I'm an expert at crying at work. In fact, one of my old coworkers, we'd be like, hey, I didn't cry today, so it's really great. It's been a great day. It's been a great week. Well, I feel like when I first started out, I was just full of imposter syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. And I would be like, I don't know if this is working. And, it's I'm always in my feelings as kind of just a matter of course. So it's okay. I'm definitely, I don't want that to sound like, oh, things have been miserable. I'll cry when I'm angry. I'll cry when I'm frustrated. That's just me. I don't know. Gosh, it's probably been, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe longer. I remember the first time I cried at work.
Okay.
And I'm very good at being like, excuse me, I'll be right back. And then I go, and, I'm in there and I'm just like, oh my God. And then I have to like get it together.
Yeah.
And scene. And we just like walk out. And act like
that is like, not to sound misogynist, that is an impressive skill that women have. The ability to, like, the mom who's losing her shit, to sit in her car, cry for 15 minutes, then get out of the car and look totally composed, like nothing happened.
Yeah, it's like
that's
time.
As a guy, we can't do that. We kind of boil over and turn into like Cro-Magnon caveman. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I think the last time I cried at work, I was, I'm a grown ass man. I had to be 40 years old.
Yeah.
40 years old. Which isn't too far from only a couple years. But I literally came home from work and I was so upset. I was in tears. And my wife said nothing. She said, come on, we're going out. We went out to dinner. We went to a movie. We came back, and it was my boss at the time. Made me cry.
Really?
And fuck it. She was the worst boss I've ever had in my entire career. And I'm lucky to have had, I call them broken glass bosses, right? And that's a boss that you would crawl across broken glass for. I've had 3 in my career. I've been very, very lucky.
Yes.
She was in one of the in-betweens. And this is a boss who I went into her office at 8:00 on a Monday morning. And I shut the door and I said, look, our working agreement, the way we work together, it just doesn't work. I said, it's caustic at best and combative at worst. And I don't know what happened, and I don't know what I did. And I don't want to try and troubleshoot the past and figure out where it comes from. I want to know, how can we create a positive environment so we can both get what we need from each other and be successful.
Right.
And then she proceeded to blame it all on me for 35 minutes.
Oh, hell no.
So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that was the last time I actually cried at work. I went home in tears, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm driving home, I'm kind of laughing, but I'm kind of crying. I'm crying because I'm just so emotionally drained. But then I'm laughing because I'm like, I'm a grown-ass man driving home from work. there's these people driving by me coming out of the train station, and they're probably like, yo, what is this guy doing? There's some fat guy with questionable facial hair driving away in this ugly green car. And he's crying like, yo, call the police. Suicide bomber, maybe like
keep an eye on that guy. Well, I also think we've definitely gone on a rabbit hole, but I love it. I love this. I think that we end up holding so much emotion, I mean, I even feel like I see that sometimes when we get together for our board meetings. It's just like, we just need a minute to like sit and like let things settle. But there are some times where you're holding a lot of emotion for people because I feel like it's my responsibility to create and hold space for people to do what needs to be done. And it's not always easy. And I will kind of soak some of that up. That's feedback that I've gotten for sure in the past of just like, maybe find some way to make those, sponge pores a little bit smaller so that you're not soaking it all up. Right. I guess my assumption is that probably comes with more like with time and experience and kind of understanding.
Maybe.
Well, I don't know, but see, I mean, you're saying like, even as recently as a couple of years ago, you were like, I mean, that seemed more direct, but I feel like more often than not, it's me kind of absorbing the emotions of other people, whether it's like the hurt or the frustration that's happening in a system, in an organization, in a team with a person, right? I mean, I've definitely had coworkers come to me because that's kind of the position that I'm in to say, I have had a horrible day. I am very upset about this. I just need to talk about it with somebody. And I'm like, great, let's do it. And then some days, it's
harder. It's harder than others to be that sponge. And, it ties to what you're hitting at, ties to a lot of the stuff we're told and we talk about as coaches with the idea of empathy. And you need to be empathetic and bringing your whole self to work and safe spaces. And all those things are great. And they all work, but to different people, they are different levels of exhausting. And if you're one of those people, I used to work with a coach who was a very high functioning empath, and she literally was a sponge. And she could tell when someone on the other side of the room was having a rough go. And it was exhausting for her. Like people were like teaching safe courses, right? Which are kind of not really sexy or fun. She would come out completely exhausted because she spends that whole time not only teaching, but also trying to absorb the room. And which way do I go? Do I go a little bit more left, a little bit more right, more anecdotes, less anecdotes? And I think people, you need to, I as a piece of advice, I would tell people that you need to be honest with yourself. Like, it's okay. It's okay to feel burnt. It's okay to be like, I can't deal with people today. I'm going to turn off Slack, or I'm going to turn off Teams. And I'm just going to work quietly. I'll email my team and let them know, because you got to, if you don't care for yourself, no one else will. It's the whole thing about, on the airplane, you put on your own oxygen mask first so you can take care of yourself before you can help others. You got to kind of take care of yourself first. Man, that was kind of a dark metaphor there. Come on, Janee, get us out of that metaphor.
I get what you're saying. Well, I want to go back to something you said about the broken glass boss too, and now we're so far from music, but we'll get back there. Don't you worry. I have one of those now. I had one of those previously. Really, those might be the only two broken glass bosses I have in my life. Is that true? There was one a long time ago, but that was a different life. And I feel like when you have a boss like that you feel fully supported for and by, and you'll crawl through broken glass for them anytime. Also, right now at the place that I'm at, like I said, the culture is so people focused, and I really feel that it's so genuine that I haven't had one of those days quite yet. Like, I've had a day of just like mental exhaustion because my mind is all over the place, where I'm like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to try this, and I'm excited for these things, and I can't wait till we, get rolling with, fill in the blank. So I'm more mentally exhausted because I'm just excited about stuff, but emotionally, I feel like the culture. So when you feel supported by the overall culture of the organization, I'm certainly less likely to have that emotional exhaustion, barring a few very specific things that might happen. Right. You lose, a coworker or what have you. So,
and in those emotionally supported environments, other people will see it coming, and they'll be like, "Hey, I know that I'm burnt. I'm starting to feel it. So I know you have to be feeling it. Let's take 10 and go do something different, log off or whatever. We'll come back later because everybody can kind of sense that thread being woven amongst the whole team.
Yep.
And it becomes easier to see it coming.
And everybody's like, what do we need to do? How can we support one another? And actually this might be something that's more common, but this is the first organization that I've been a part of that as a part of their staff, they have social workers that are there for the employees. Yeah.
That's actually a really brilliant, a brilliant idea.
It's amazing. And you know, they're always checking in with people and they're there as a resource and everybody feels comfortable to reach out for that. It's incredibly encouraging. And I just feel like, you know, other orgs could learn from that. So
if there's one thing that came out of the whole lockdown pandemic, everybody work over Zoom, don't put pants on again, is the acceptance that mental health is important.
Agreed.
Mental health is vital to physical health, which is vital to success in anything you try and do. And we need to be more cognizant of the idea of needing help. You know, mental. What somebody say to me? Mental health is not the absence of mental disease or defect. Mental health is something different, and there's no shame in getting a therapist. There's no shame in getting someone to talk to. It is hygiene. It is. It's like brushing your teeth. It really is.
That's all that it is. Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like it just kind of depends on a lot of things, like how you were raised and you know all that. Whether you feel comfortable to kind of own the fact that it's totally fine to reach out, you know, for support from time to time when you need it, not because you're broken, but just because you need, you know, some support.
Right. Mental health is not the absence of mental disease or illness. It is, you know, sometimes you just need someone to talk to, and yet there is something to be said for the idea of stoicism and the idea of resilience. But with that comes the acknowledgement that, hey, sometimes even the most stoic people in the world, they kind of need a minute sometimes. And it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I need a minute. I need a day. I'm just taking a day. I'm just going to sit here with the music on and not pay attention to anything and let everything just float away.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And I also feel like, see, you like to bring up stoicism. I feel like this comes up every once in a while with you, right?
Yeah.
I've heard it. But I think, too, sometimes that's more about like just knowing what to give a shit about and what to let go. Having boundaries and being really good about that. That's what I think.
Well said. The whole spilt milk, right? And isn't it the serenity prayer? I didn't grow up going to church, but isn't there like Lord give me the strength to so I forget what it is, like only worry about the things I can control or something like that. I forget the whole prayer, but that's really what it comes down to, right? Like you need to pick and choose the stuff that you're really going to get upset about.
Yeah.
You know, so we're in an economic downturn. We're in a recession, although nobody wants to call it the R word. And my wife is in the mortgage business.
Okay.
There's always a concern that she's going to have a one-on-one and it's going to be her boss telling her, hey, we're letting you go. We're laying people off. For a while, we were both kind of stressed about it. And then we both kind of just said, you know, this decision is completely out of our hands. We have no influence on it whatsoever. So what can we do? Well, worrying about it's not going to help us. Maybe we don't spend so frivolously. Maybe we don't eat out as much. Maybe we think about this plan for what would happen if one of us lost an income, either her or me lost an income. How would we make it manage? And the fact that we had those conversations actually took a lot of the stress out of the situation. So she had a one-on-one yesterday and she's just like, this might be the day. And I said, yeah, it might be the day. And then she goes, well, what do you want to do for dinner? Like, it was not even a thing. It was not even a thing. And there is something to be said about only worrying about really the shit you really can control. Yeah. Now you could swing that the other way, which is what I get accused of every time temperatures rise and blood pressure goes up and said, I don't give a shit about anything. It's like, no, it's something I don't give a shit. I don't worry about anything. It's let it happen as it happens. I wanted to pull it back to the music, but I forgot. We were having such a good conversation. I forgot how I wanted to pull it back in.
Well, we were talking about using it with the team when we kind of went down the rabbit hole of feelings because of my sailboat retro.
Interesting question. Have you ever used like a musical theme for a PI or something like that? Or
no, I haven't, but I love that. I have I mean, I've noticed some teams will use like musical themes to like name their sprints and stuff like that, but I don't know that I have ever seen a theme for a PI, although I'm into it.
I've done 2.
Oh, nice.
The first one, we called it Mission Possible. And we played the Mission Impossible theme song through the entire PI event. And everybody had T-shirts in the Mission Impossible logo. That was the first one. The second one, we were titled the Agile Value Management Office, the AVMO.
Okay.
So we did a YMCA theme at PI planning. And I literally paid for hats for everybody. So everybody came in costume from YMCA, the village people. And we were AVMO it was a lot of fun, but it was one of those things where, speaking of the power of music, right? Yeah. So we kicked off with that. We closed PI planning with that. And then we went into the happy hour. So we went into the happy hour. There's about 150 people there. And it's from like managing director, VP level, all the way down to like somebody who's literally just a team member. And like we had one senior director, she had on the leather cap from the biker, and then somebody else had on the construction hat. It was another VP, and it created this atmosphere where everybody was very convivial and just talkative and friendly, and we kind of left all the work stuff behind. Yeah, all the stuff about work and role and stature and bureaucracy, and we all just kind of hung out and had a good time. Yeah. And that was one of those things where I'm like, man, it sounds cheesy to say we need a theme for PI planning, but we need a theme for PI planning.
I feel like something like that can really bring people together, like you said, and it creates something that people can, it's touchstone, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like your like pep rally or whatever in high school. I'm dating myself again. Do they still do pep rallies?
I think they do.
Probably. Listener, let us know. But I can call my kid. Do pep rallies in high school? She'll be like, "What are you doing?" But I think that's really cool, and it gets everybody excited about what we're doing and where we're headed, and it kind of puts a fun energy behind it. I really like that idea. I don't think we're quite there yet, where I'm at, but right. This if anybody was going to do it, it would be these people. They are amazing, so they're up for anything.
Food for thought. And I think what you and I are both saying for all of our listeners taken away from this is sometimes the stuff that, and even and here we can close with this because it takes a full circle. Even the idea of like an Agile mixtape for the team, for the company. Sometimes those ideas that the cynic will say, oh, well, that's kind of schmaltzy or that's kind of cheesy. They have way more weight and way more influence than anybody can really imagine. So don't write it off as some quote unquote cheesy effort. There usually is something there, and typically you get way more out of it than what you put into it.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to speak to people, and that's good. That's advice that I give myself sometimes too, because like I said, I'll be like, I'm saying this is cheesy. I'm not going to try this. But I have learned when I have kind of stepped outside and been like, we're going to try this. I'm not sure if anybody's going to like it. And the one person that you didn't think was going to pay attention or really care about it at all ends up being like, that was so fun. That working session, that whatever it is that we were doing, that ended up being a lot of fun. And I'm like, see, you don't know everything. Get out of your own freaking way.
Right. I've had the same experience with things as well, where you think this is terrible, this is cheesy, nobody's going to want to do this, and you force yourself to do it, and then you're kind of pleasantly surprised by coming out the other end. People are like, wow, that was great. And you're like, man, I feel like such a schmuck.
Turns out I'm a huge cynic. Okay? Thanks a lot.
Well, cynic, realist, right? Glass half full, glass half empty. The realist is looking at the glass going, that is definitely pee. That is definitely pee. So with that, we're at a good 40 minutes. Janee, I want to thank you for having this conversation with me. This has been a lot of fun for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed this. It was unscripted. We'll have a link to Janee's playlist in the show notes. And we want to thank, all of our patrons. We do have a Patreon. We are committed to being free. However, if you want to chip in some bucks for hosting and processing, podcast production, feel free to do so. We want to thank Machine Man Records and their artist Krebs for providing our outro music free of charge. And once again, you can always find us on our Discord server. We're up. We just cleaned up a bunch of inactive users, and I think we're up near the 300 count again. So we have a quite lively international footprint. So please hop in and join the conversation. So on behalf of Janee and myself, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And until next time, this is the Agile Uprising podcast signing out.
Thank you.
The perfect weekend getaway requires 3 things: a gorgeous view, a carefree crew, and a little something sparkly, which makes Lightbox lab-grown diamonds the travel essential of the season. From earrings to necklaces, these gems are made to be worn, never hidden. So pack your bags, grab your bestie, and get ready for a glam-packed getaway, because vacations are meant to sparkle. Just remember to pack light and wear Lightbox. Visit lightboxjewelry.com and use promo code SUMMER10.
Do you know somebody who won't wear their seatbelt? Well, if they won't listen to their cars dinging, maybe you should add some of your own.
Ding, 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 ding.
Go ahead,
ding,
kids. Chime in.
Ding, ding, ding.
Hey, you on the street, tell this guy to wear a seatbelt.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep, it's okay to speak up, because you know what? You could save their life. Learn more at buckleupva.com. A message from the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles.